Many guitarists who start writing songs start out with a chord groove or a chord progression. It could be that you're just jamming along and suddenly find yourself playing a great sounding chord sequence. You have a beginning of a new song. Now you could move along and just string a whole bunch of chords together in the groove that you've composed. The risk is that your ear will be going all over the place, and it's going to be hard to find a smooth melody on top of those chords. On the other hand, you could also be limited by your own chord options. Maybe there are avenues you haven't tried and get stuck in a rut with the same old boring chords. It makes sense at some point in your writing process to take a step back and ask yourself some simple questions. The answers to those questions might guide you into some new territory or help you find some building blocks for your songs.
1, 2, 3, 4. First off, you might want to ask yourself what key you're playing your chord groove in. In this case, are we in D, in E, or in A, or maybe even in another key? The answer to that question will give you the initial scale to choose your melody notes from and give you the group of chords you can choose for your composition. The key will give you the tonic of the scale, a D, an E, or an A. And it will also give you the chord that is built on that note, the tonic chord, also known as the 1 chord, the chord on the first degree of the scale, so D major, E major, or A major. Now, a lot of songs start off on the tonic chord and almost all of them end on it, but you don't have to start on it. The best way to figure out what key your groove is in is to feel on which chord the song could end. That chord is home bass, the tonic chord, and will give you the key of your chord groove. If your chord groove starts off by playing 4 bars of a G major groove, your ear will say, this is home bass. Listen to this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Key is clearly G major, and your initial choice of melody notes would be from the most commonly used major scale, the Ionic major scale, so do a deer, female deer. That scale, the G major scale. Now these 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, will also be the basis for choosing other chords. Each note will be the root of a chord, major or minor, to add to your chord groove. Just so you know, there are more than one major scales you could choose from, and you do have other chord options. But for the sake of discussion, we'll stick to the simplest chord choices for now. But what if your chord groove starts out like this?
1, 2, 3, 4. Your first chord is a D, but it doesn't feel like home bass after you've played the second chord. It still feels like the song is moving forward. Once you land on the A major chord, it feels like the song could end there. A major is the key you're in.
And the A Ionic major scale is the scale that goes with the chord progression. The scale notes are A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, and G sharp. On each of those notes you will find a chord you can use in the key of A major. Now home is what you're looking for, and although you might not immediately know which chords go with the key that you found and which melodic options you have, you'll recognize home when you hear it. Listen to this chord groove.
1, 2, 3, 4. When you play that last chord twice, it still doesn't feel like home. The groove is still open, you can't end the song there. But the G chord that you started the groove out with also does not have that home feel. The only chord that gives you that static home feel is the A minor, so the key is A minor. Now your melody notes will initially come from the A minor scale, and so will the chords. When you compose a song in a minor key, you actually have more than one minor scale to choose from. Your scale options are Aeolian, Dorian, Phrygian, harmonic minor, and melodic minor. And you can mix them up too. Each of these scales has a set of chords derived from them, and you can use them in your chord progression. Now, if this sounds like a lot of info, that's because it is. In a later chapter, we'll dig into minor harmony, the chord options that you have in minor, and the choices for melody notes. We won't get too specific with the minor modes. That's not the purpose of this course. Please check out some of the excellent TrueFire courses on modes by Brad Carlton if you really want to get down and dirty. Attached to this lesson, I have a list of chord options in the keys a guitarist will likely use. You'll see that you have a lot of options in a minor key, each with its own flavor. Experiment with these chords and mixing them up to get a vibe on where your options lie. Let's look at another groove and try to establish home base. 1, 2, 3, 4. Of all the chords you're playing in this groove, the G7 chord feels like home base. Once you land on that chord, you feel like the song could end. But it's home feel with a twist. The home chord, or tonic chord, is a G7 chord, meaning a chord that has the notes G, B, D, and F. G, B, D, and that's your F on top. But if you play or sing a regular ionic major scale on the top of the G, to find your options for melody notes, you'll come across an F sharp note, not an F. The F note in the G7 gives the chord an edge, it has some tension. The F sharp note from the scale would clash with it. G7 is still home bass, but the harmony is different from the previous examples. The groove we came up with is a bluesy groove, and blues harmony is a special kind of harmony. In a folk song, the G7 chord would have so much tension that it would want to resolve to a C chord. You would use the G7 chord as the 5 chord in the key of C, not G. Our ear has gotten used to hearing this tension and can handle a static G7 chord in a blues progression. Now, blues is a form of music where you play these dominant 7th chords like G7 in a static manner. The first option for your melody notes is actually a minor scale. Better still, a minor pentatonic scale, meaning only 5 notes. Blues harmony will be discussed later in this course. Just be aware of this bluesy sound when you come across a groove like this one. Your chord options are going to be different from a regular major chord groove, and so is your choice of melody notes.